Hi, this is Linda from the Safety Training Net and from Safety Fundamentals, and I'm going to walk you through an old presentation that I think is a pretty good example of bad design and show you how I would quickly remake it so it's much clearer and really ties more to the message that trying to get across. So first, to give you some background, this top 10 mistakes of safety committees was a file that I found when I went digging for old PowerPoint presentations, and I'm not quite sure if I created this or not. I probably did, but it's pretty terrible. And it was from 2002. So I like to think that I had a good excuse because I had just started out with PowerPoint and really probably learning all the things that it could do. I also knew much less about what makes slides good. So just to show you briefly how I would change this if I had to create this same very short slide presentation going forward. So the first thing that jumps out at me here is the color contrast, which I think is terrible. The red gradient into purple, and also the white font and the font style, which is much too fat and decorative for this kind of presentation, really for any kind of presentation. It's making it really hard to read, and I find this very hard on the eyes. So first thing I would do, as you see on the left, are change all the backgrounds to just a simple solid color. In this case, I went with yellow. I went with the font being black and a much clearer font because yellow and black are already something that many safety people are familiar with, and many people in your audience will be more familiar with it as well. So it's also just a very good contrast. I added in images on the first page also to get some attention. This is in Canva, and I talk about Canva a lot. If you search number 10 in Canva, this will pop up, and I just removed the background, which is another simple thing to do in Canva or PowerPoint if you want to do that, and added it on the front page. So that's how I got started. Let's just go through these slides quickly. Number 2, I started with a pre-quiz, and I am actually surprised that I was doing pre-quizzes back then because now I know how important they can be. But I did throw this in there. Again, it's the font and it's the colors that were just not good. On the left, I threw in an icon or a graphic to try to illustrate quiz. Probably not necessary, but I threw that one in there quickly. Let me start with number 10. I worked my way backwards, and as you'll see, the 10 is really hard to figure out if it's a 10 or not. It's vertical. To me, it could be an exclamation point. The blue, again, on the red is just painful to my eyes. I also have no idea why there's a bullet point next to lack of member participation. There's only one line of text on this slide, so we really don't need a bullet point either. So on the left, you'll see I'm focusing more on the image. I cleaned up the text and the background and the number and tried to add an image that would get attention and also be more closely related to the content. We go to number 9, management domination. I tried to find an image showing a manager being dominated, and this is what I came up with. Again, just much clearer, much easier to see, and hopefully more attention getting. Now this one on the right really makes me cringe. It's lack of communication. So the image, which is hard to understand, shows someone communicating with a bullhorn. So it's completely opposite what the text is, which is saying lack of communication. It's a really abstract image and just really hard to figure out. And the colors have nothing to do with the colors of the slide. So this is really terrible. So I made this one again on the left, tried to find an image related to lack of communication, and cleaned it up. Number 7 was lack of follow-up, and again, this person looks like a manager, I'm guessing, because he's got a tie on, holding a wrench, has nothing to do with lack of follow-up. Another bad just addition of a graphic, probably for the sake of adding a graphic, which you don't want to do because it distracts people from paying attention to the important things. On the left, I tried to find an image that showed someone confused. Lack of follow-up was probably the hardest one for me to find an image for, and I really still am struggling with this. So if you have some ideas on how you could illustrate lack of follow-up, I'd love to hear them. So just add that in the comments below or get in touch and see if I can come up with something new. Ineffective meetings, again, image shows people having a meeting, nothing about it makes you think that it's ineffective. The one on the left just shows a really big meeting. Again, I probably could have done a better job of making that seem ineffective, but at least they are people maybe working in safety. Number 5, lack of leadership. Bad image again. At least it has to do with leadership, I'm guessing, but having someone on a boat has nothing to do with safety training. For the most part, maybe you work in maritime industry and you're tied to shipping, but again, this is not a good image. So on the left, I tried to throw a little bit of humor in there, showed people, fighting because there's no leadership. So to me, that was a better image. Number 4, ineffective training. The one on the right, again, may or may not be training, could be training, but nothing there is making it seem ineffective. On the left, people falling asleep in a training class. I think that's, again, my attempt at throwing in a little bit of humor, and that's why I used that image. Number 3, improper committee size. Once again, 4 people having a meeting, may or may not be a committee, may or may not be improper. On the left, I just made a really big group to hopefully have people figure out that that big of a group would be an improper committee size. Down to number 2, insufficient resources. This graphic's probably the most closely related to the topic. It shows more people than money, and the one I recreated shows the same thing. I'm not crazy about this graphic. It does get the message across, so if this was a real presentation, I would spend much more time on that graphic. Finally, number 1, lack of committee purpose. This graphic, again, is not terrible. It shows someone confused, shows one person confused, not a committee. The one on the left, again, shows my attempt at humor and shows people just having some lunch and donuts at a meeting instead of actually having a meeting. Finally, on the right, I tried to round this out with a quote. If you always do the things you've always done, you'll always get the things you've always got. And I do love this quote. This one makes me cringe because of this think about it section, which back in the days of everyone using PowerPoint all the time for everything, this was word art, and word art was kind of a fancy thing to throw in. The colors here don't match at all. The word art's distracting. It looks really terrible. And I guess this graphic shows someone thinking, but again, this whole slide needs to be redone. So on the left, you see I actually cited the person who said the quote, which was Henry Ford, found an image of Henry Ford, make it much easier to read, and left the quote there. So the one on the right, that was the end of that presentation. This was a quick overview, and I hope you can see the importance of using clear colors, clear text, good contrast, and images that tie closely to your content. And you can see how much better the revised one is, even though I still think it's far from done, but it is a revised presentation. If you have somehow found this slideshow and you're not subscribed, this slide will show you how you can go ahead and sign up to get email newsletters directly to your inbox with lots of safety training resources, ideas, and other slideshows like this. So just scan the QR code or go to that web link at the bottom, safetyfundamentals.news/net, and you will be a subscriber of the Safety Training Net. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have any questions, need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, and have a great day.